Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for accepting our invitation to attend this weekly media briefing. You will recall from the email that we sent to you that we invited you to receive a briefing from us on issues that are current within the department. These were the following: the UN High-Level Dialogue on Migration and Development at the UN in New York, the meeting of the Executive Committee of the UN High Commission for Refugees in Geneva, the invalidation of duplicate IDs that has been announced by the department and the ministry, and fourthly, the steps that we're taking to deal with backlogs in the matter of permits in the department. So I will be briefing you on those four matters. Well, let me begin by again thanking you for taking time out to attend our weekly media briefing. These briefings provide us with an opportunity to address issues that may be of mutual concern and interest. Today's briefing will focus on four main issues, as I've indicated: the UN High-Level Dialogue on International Migration and Development, the annual United Nations High Commission for Refugees meeting in Geneva, our planned invalidation of duplicate IDs, as well as the steps we've taken to address the permanent residence backlog within the department. With respect to the high-level dialogue on international migration and development, I'll be leading our delegation to the UN High-Level Dialogue on International Migration and Development, which is scheduled for the 3rd to the 4th of October in New York. The theme of this year's dialogue is migration and development. We have 4 plenary sessions that will be dedicated to this subject, based on an interactive roundtable discussion that will focus on the following: the effects of international migration on sustainable development, measures that countries should take to protect migrants' human rights, as well as attend to the impact of human trafficking on migrants, the strengthening of partnerships, as well as international cooperation on addressing migration policy and practices, and then the important subject of regional labor mobility and its link to development. These will be the subjects that would be discussed at the high-level dialogue. With respect to the Executive Committee meeting of the UN High Commission for Refugees in Geneva at the UNHCR headquarters, our Deputy Minister, Fatima Chauhan, will be leading the South African delegation to the Geneva meeting. It's the 64th session of the Executive Committee of the UNHCR, and it is scheduled to begin on the 30th of September. On the important subject of the invalidation of duplicate IDs, we've taken a decision to phase out duplicate and multiple IDs by the end of December this year. We published the names of all persons affected in all the major national and regional print media on more than one occasion. We have called upon these individuals to approach Home Affairs officers across the country for assistance. We've also worked with a courier company, TransUnion, to trace those affected, because for many of the persons who hold duplicate or multiple IDs, we do have their addresses on our database. TransUnion has sought to help us to trace these persons. Some we have traced and assisted, but many have not responded to our call. So despite our efforts, we've not been able to address this problem in its entirety. We have been calling on everyone who has a duplicate ID, that is 2 people sharing one ID number, and persons with multiple IDs, that are people who have more than one ID to utilize our SMS call number 32551 to check on their status with respect to ID, and to also call our call center number 0800 601 190 in order to check their status and to approach our officers and actually just solve this problem, which for many people is a very, very serious problem. We will invalidate duplicate IDs on the 30th of October 2013, and all multiple IDs will be invalidated on the 31st of December of this year. In both cases, we will again advertise the names of all those affected in the main national newspapers and in the regional newspapers between this middle of September up to December 2013. I understand that Lawyers for Human Rights have brought a court application to declare it unlawful and unconstitutional to block any citizen's identity number without reason and without giving them a chance to respond. I will oppose the application. I have indicated the efforts we have made to try to reach those affected before we invalidate identity documents. On the matter of permanent residence permits backlogs, we've undertaken as a department that the time limit within which we would adjudicate permanent residence applications is 8 months. We've not been able to meet that 8-month period. And what we've decided to do is I've increased the size of the unit dealing with permanent residence applications by employing 20 more full-time staff whose sole work will be adjudication of permanent residence permit applications. This team is currently undergoing training, and it will assume duty from the 1st of November. So we're trying to make sure that we really train the team so that they can successfully process permit applications. We've also established a permanent residence backlog project whose purpose is to clear the current backlog of 23,945 applications for permanent residence by December 15th this year. This backlog dates back to 2009. At the moment, the focus of the team is on the 2009-2010 applications. They will then deal with 2011 applications and will conclude with the applications we have in the system of the year 2012 and 2013. In addition to this prioritization, I've also asked the team to focus on permanent residence categories that are of importance to our economic priorities. So they're focusing on work permits, quota skills, extraordinary skills permits, business permits, which link very directly either to employment creation or business establishment in South Africa. We will, of course, still attend to urgent cases based on their specific merits, but I believe it is vital that we get rid of the backlog. We will be updating our website with the contact details of the project manager for the backlog project, and indicating how clients can get in touch with the project office to find out what progress there is with respect to their permanent residence application. I think the team we've put in place is a very good team. We've isolated them on the topmost floor in our headquarters, and we pay regular visits to assess the work that they're doing. So I think for the first time, we believe that we've established a team that will really help us to get rid of this backlog, which is a very serious problem for our department. Ronnie, I've addressed the 4 areas I had indicated I would address with respect to the media briefing, I know that the room is full because colleagues are interested in other matters. I'm not an investigating officer, and I'm a member of government who operates on the basis of official information before me, but I've concluded this part of my briefing. Thank you.
Why is it so easy for alleged terrorists to get access to South African passports, especially with this new passport, with all these security measures that were introduced into it? And obviously, do you see this as a major step back, especially with efforts that you were trying to influence countries like Britain in terms of South Africans having to apply for visas and the quality of our passports? I mean, obviously that puts South Africans traveling under much more scrutiny in countries especially affected by terrorism.
Can you please introduce yourself for record purposes, right?
Sorry, Minister. Mahlatsi Gallants from SABC News.
Right. Hopewell, did you raise? Oh, no, sorry, the lady here.
Connie Hunter from the New Age newspaper. Minister, my question is, I have two questions. The first of which being is that are you in talks, with the Kenyan government with regards to this matter that has been raised, or someone from your department at least? Secondly, if there are those talks, what are they including? Are you being and are you collaborating with other departments like the State Security in terms of any panic that has been raised surrounding this issue of the White Widow? And my second, those are my two questions.
Minister Narissa from E! News. We know that the passport was issued under the name of Natalie Faye Webb. Are you able to tell us who is Natalie Faye Webb? Also, we've been led to understand that that this was a fraudulently created ID number. If this is true, how did this happen? And lastly, who will you hold accountable for this? Will there be criminal charges, given that issuing this passport may have aided a wanted terrorist? Thank you.
Hopewell Khareb, I will save you, Minister, and change the direction of the ship. The Director General, Hopewell Khareb Business Day, the Director General, Mr. Apleni, launched an investigation 2 weeks back or a week back, looking into the possible breach of labor laws by an administrator or HR of a new media company, trying to find out whether their staff were in the country on a work permit, and therefore, if they were not but had worked, what steps are going to be taken? Has this investigation been concluded, and what are the steps been taken? Thanks.
To this, she was in possession of a South African passport. On it was a South African ID number. Have you investigated to establish the source?
Okay, got it. Thank you.
Okay.
All right. Yes, there has been an investigation. Remember the matter of this holder of a South African passport in the name of a South African, Natalie Webb, was investigated and reported upon in 2011. You'll recall this is an old matter, which has now been revived in very interesting ways in the media with a great deal of speculation. It was investigated in 2011. The passport was cancelled at that time because it was identified as a passport fraudulently acquired. The passport itself was genuine, but what the person did was they used the identity of a South African, Faye Webb, in order to acquire a South African passport. So there was an investigation. In fact, I recall when I looked at the media briefing from that time, Eyewitness News was part of that briefing in which the DG gave a very long outline of the process and the interaction with the Kenyan and British authorities concerning that fraudulently acquired South African passport. Since then, there have been steps to improve both the security of the passport as well as access to South African passports. As you know, there's a much better integration between our National Population Register database and the live capture system. And I think the improvements we're making now with respect to the South African passport application process will help us to even address any future attempts to fraudulently acquire South African passports. So I'm satisfied that our processes at the moment allow us to protect both South African access to the passport and ensure that holders of the passports are legal holders. I do think what we need to do beyond the 2011 investigation is actually find out at the Office of Application who received the application and what form of assessment did they make of the applicant in order to be absolutely certain that this person was the legal holder of the documents that were submitted as part of the application. Now, the applicant at the time used late registration of birth as her entry to the National Population Register. It's one of the reasons why I believe the late registration of birth has to be brought to an end in South Africa. And you will recall I announced that in 2015 we are going to cease allowing late registration of birth. Now, the second question was the person residing in South Africa. Well, from what I've seen on E-News, yes, they were at some point resident in South Africa. Is the passport lost? I'm not aware as to whether it's lost or not. It's no longer a legal travel document. It has been cancelled on our system. If it comes up either in South Africa or anywhere in the world, due to interactions we've had with Interpol, the Kenyan authorities, the UK authorities, this passport wouldn't be regarded as a legal travel document. So I would be surprised if the person would not be stopped from entering a country if they produce it at a port of entry. There hasn't been an impact on South African passports' integrity because this matter was appropriately handled by South African government officials in the year 2011. We collaborated fully with the Kenyan and United Kingdom authorities at that time, and they were satisfied with the cooperation they received from South Africa. Since that time, there has been no formal request to South Africa to give attention to this person or that particular passport. I don't think, Matlasi, it's easy to get a South African passport. It might have been at the time, but I think we've now changed both the process of application as well as the character of the passport. As to whether the quality of the passport is in question or its status, as far as I'm aware up to today, all South Africans traveling internationally are able to travel without hazard and are getting through ports of entry as they travel. I've not received any complaints up to this very moment and hour. As to whether we're in talks with the Kenyan government, the very direct answer is no. There has been no communication to us that there's any passport of the nature you mentioned with respect to the individual you've all referred to that has been directed to my attention or the attention of any of the security departments in the country. Of course, we cooperate with the government of Kenya, and we've expressed our condolences at the terrible events that have taken place and the loss of lives, including the loss of our own citizen. It's a tragic set of occurrences. Our government remains steadfast that we must combat terrorism wherever it occurs, but we've had no communication from the Minister of Foreign Affairs of Kenya, Minister of Home Affairs of Kenya, or Minister of Police of Kenya that there's a South African passport that has been used as part of the attacks that took place over the weekend. Who will be held accountable? I'm not sure accountable for what. I think with respect to the acquisition of the passport in the old matter that was dealt with in 2011, we probably need to follow up exactly what occurred, given this name coming up from time to time and the curiosity that continues to surround the matter. But as to recent events in Kenya, as I've reported, there's no association. There's no communication. We've checked with our High Commissioner following what we've seen in the media. Has there been an approach by the Kenyan government? The answer from our High Commissioner is no. There is no such approach. Minister of Police, Home Affairs, who's a good colleague of ours, has not communicated with us. So I don't know where the story has suddenly taken life, that South Africa is associated with what occurred through a passport, and a particular individual is associated with what occurred over the weekend. And I strenuously, until I have evidence, deny any association with South Africa. With respect to Business Day, yes, the investigation has now been completed. I'm looking at the report, and if I decide to take any particular action, Hopewell, I promise you'll be the first to know.
Hello, Minister. Liesl Tom, ABC News. This Natalie Faye Webb passport was declared invalid in 2011 already. Mm-hmm. Do we know if it has been presented at any port of entry? And then adding on to that, is there any way to tell whether Samantha Luthwaite obtained any other South African identity documents? And have you spoken to the real Faye Webb?
We understand that she currently, this Samantha Luthwaite / Faye Webb, currently has 2 other South African identity numbers on which passports were issued. Are you investigating this? And if so, can you elaborate on the status of the investigation? Thank you.
Yeah, I think that's the last question, right?
Hi, I'm Ashley Hamilton from CBS News. If we are to look at the White Widow and the alike already having a presence in South Africa, could we potentially look at the Westgate Mall incident being something that South African malls are in danger of? That's the first question. And the second is could South Africa inadvertently be providing cover for terrorist groups? Thank you.
Doing what? The last part? Ashley, you say what is the last part?
Am I back on mic? So could South Africa inadvertently be providing cover for terror groups? Was that clear?
Yeah, the last question, I suppose, right? Unless I'm mistaken. This is the last question.
Minister, this is a separate situation. Has there been any question with regards to a businessman from the Val named Arshad Ali, in terms of, has there been any contact from Pakistani Home Affairs in terms of deporting this man who lives in the Val and went to Pakistan? Yes, arrested/abducted. So has there been any talk with the ISI in Pakistan to deport the man back home?
But I thought our Department of International Relations was dealing with it. Okay, but anyway.
But in terms of deportation.
Sorry.
Yeah, no, proceed.
Barry Bateman, Eyewitness News again. I asked this question last week. It's just been a couple of days since I last checked. The status of the investigation into alleged visa irregularities at ANN7. Questions I put in.
Answer the question.
Sorry, I must have been lost.
That was the question Hopewell asked.
Hopewell asked that question.
And
My
I said,
apologies.
I said
My
Hopewell
apologies.
will be the first to know.
All right, I've got it recorded. I'll survive. Thank you.
I'm Khalang Bata from Bloomberg News. Minister, can you confirm if Samantha Luthwaite was using Faye Webb's identity up until the passport was cancelled in 2011?
No, I just want to find out, if you go into an internet and you look at the government gazette, the information of people's names, surnames, IDs, date of birth, it's just in abundance. Doesn't that put people's names and duplication of these IDs into a risk and putting people to forge these documents? Because if I can go into an internet now, I can come with 100 names, surnames, IDs, and date of birth.
Thank you for your questions.
All right.
Minister
I think Lehana has raised a very important point. There is a lot of access to information, and there's been a great deal of discussion about what could be done to protect people more. Answers haven't been found as yet, as you've seen from recent developments in the United States. And of course, you'd have seen on the SABC last night that if you just punch in a name into the credit bureau, you get all the credit information about an individual. And that's easily done, and then it's treated like it's a major discovery. But you can do it on anybody. So certainly the issue of protection of privacy and information that should be publicly available is one I think South Africa has to have much more of a discussion about. But let me come back. Has the passport been used? Well, the last recorded use we have on our movement control system of that fraudulently acquired passport was February 2011. So since then, because the name has been stop listed as a terrorist suspect on our movement control system and on Interpol, the passport has not been used, yeah? As far as we have our records, yeah? So I'm talking about information we have before us at this moment. Which office issued the passport? I believe it was issued in Durban, and of course all passports come to Durban via Pretoria. And so, you know, we have a single producer here through the GPW, and we'd have to, as I say, I still think we need to make a clear connection as to what occurred in Durban, what was presented, why was it accepted. I haven't been able to source that detail of information, and I do think we need to track it down. I don't know whether this person has 2 other passports. I can't answer to that. I don't know the person. I've never met her. I'm not in communication with her. Those who are should give their information to the police and help us get rid of a terrible person. Are South African malls in danger? I hope that we are going to learn from what occurred in Kenya and all other incidents of terror that occur throughout the world. Hope our security forces become alert. And I hope with respect to just the use of technology and CCTV, the fact that people can carry into the mall heavy armor or may have hidden it in the mall is something that hopefully is a lesson that our security forces should draw on. We have had incidents of bombings and other attacks in South Africa before, as you're aware, in the Western Cape with respect to the waterfront and so on. And I think our security forces at the time fought off the threat very, very well with good intelligence work. And I think we'd have to ensure, as the security cluster, that we are as strong in intelligence as we were those many years ago. Are we providing cover for terrorist groups? No, we are not. No government intentionally provides cover, I hope, for terrorist groups, and it's certainly not the practice of the government or security forces of South Africa. I'm not going to use this media briefing to just go all over the place. I'm not going to talk about whether we've had contact from Pakistan. I personally have not, as Minister of Home Affairs. I'm not aware of contact with other ministers, and I don't think we should use the briefing to just go all over the place, because that's how we, create stories that take us down very interesting paths without official documentation before us. And then we find that we used paper very well and the electronic media, but actually there was no substance. So I'm not going to go into it because I don't have any information on the Pakistan intelligence organization's contact. On the AN7, as I indicated, the investigation has been concluded. The report is before me, and should I believe it necessary, to make a statement, I will do so. The Faye Web ID, was it being used up until discovery of the fraudulent passport? Yes, it was. The name on the passport is that of Faye Web, not the person Laithwaite. Yeah. Did Faye Web report her ID store? Well, essentially her identity has been utilized. So there's a late registration of birth using her identity. And I think from our experience, maybe we need to look into Ms. Webb much more than we've done up to this point. I don't think we've had sufficient follow-through of how the person who got the fraudulent passport came to have the detail that clearly was submitted as part of the late registration of birth. Are these close friends? Are these neighbors, etc.? So I think more investigation is necessary here. On the permits that Matlasi asked about, are these the SADC work permits that we're talking about? The new policy that we wish to put in place? I wasn't sure what permits.
No, it's basically around, in terms of the figures that I could find were based from, I think, 2011. But I wanted to check in terms of unskilled labor, people from wherever, who are asking for permits and not necessarily the scarce skill, what the figures are. It was linked to a separate story I was doing.
Yeah. I understand that Jackie, our DDG for immigration, is in receipt of an email from you, and he says he's trawling the data and will be replying to you.
Thank you.
Graham, I close.
You asked about arrests of South Africans. There hasn't been any arrests with our new passport. None whatsoever.
Sorry, just Graham Hoskin again, ma'am, from the Times. We understand that several of this Samantha Leithwaite / Natalie Faye Webb, her children also have South African passports. Have these also been flagged as so-called hits to raise custom officials, to alert customs officials across the world? And also, can you say when she actually entered the country? When did she come into South Africa? Thank you.
From the information with respect to her entry, I'll answer that. On the children, Jackie, you will answer. She first entered South Africa in July 2008, and subsequent to that on more than one occasion. And as I said, the last record we have of her using the passport is February 2011. With respect to the children, my DDG will answer.
Thank you, Minister. Indeed, all related passports or identities linked to that particular person will be put on our stop list and B list to make sure that those documents are not used to travel in and out of South Africa again. So the children's passports would be related because it was acquired under the assumed identity of Faye Webb.
I think we've sufficiently answered, really. You know, and as I say, the best answer you have and the true story is there has been no contact from the government or police or security services of Kenya indicating that a South African passport was used. In fact, I'm not aware that the investigation is at a point where militants have been identified, but we've had no official approach.
News that moves. ENCA.com.